Namaste. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, sharing 52 minutes of your busy life with Psychic Frank's Mystery School. I was reflecting this week that it was on my birthday, November 14th, 1988. I was in the mystery school and had been in the mystery school for around a year or so. Excuse me. And I said to the woman running it, Norma, that because we were allowed a private session once a month, and I explained to her what was my observation of how the mystery school could be more efficient and better, and how these political games were being played and all this. And she very patiently listened to me, rest her soul. I think she's one of my guides. And then she said, well, it looks like you're going to have your own mystery school someday, or something like that. You'll have to get your own, start your own mystery school. And then that was it. And then I left, and then a few years later, I heard that she had passed on. So, so for 40 years, I've been, here it is 2018. So, and I believe by next year, it will be a material thing. It'll be a place where you could have lectures of, it won't be like a comedy or a music night or any, it'll be like Larry Dossey, Bernie Siegel, alternative healing people, Western medicine people who are experienced, who are very aware of people like myself who do healings. Like Norma ran the good thing about Norma's school is she had all these European experts on color, and it was a different world back then. Now, I would never write a book because nobody would. You gotta live out of a suitcase. Which I know many writers, and it's not a glamorous life for me. I'm a Taurus rising. I like to stay put. So anyway, thanks for the support. Thanks for watching me on Facebook. And this show will be up there tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, okay, so let's get right to it. So much I want to cover today. We'll only get to a fraction of it. I make observations during the week, and then I have my desk and the TV and my parrot, a very small space, and I'm always jotting down things that catch my attention. For instance, I caught some video of Donnie Jr., Trump Jr., Jr. They talk about the Trump kids like they're adolescents. These kids they're 40. They're men. They're young men. They're evil young men that hurt animals, endangered species animals. So and then it dawned on me. I was listening to Donnie Jr. get interviewed. It was only like a snippet, but as an actor, we learned to read faces in acting school way back in the '60s. That we sit in front of mirrors and we learn how to, do these kind of, facial things. So I was watching the TV, and there's Donnie Jr. going, he's got Long Island lockjaw. Like Wendy Williams sort of does, like, how you doing? It's where you put your lower jaw out, like Thurston Howell III on Gilligan's Island. Well, the secretary, you see the brakes went on the rails and it went smashing. Yeah, down to the beer of the Bentley. I was watching Don Jr. and he was talking about, the secretary was, and I said, oh my God, that little brat has the Long Island lockjaw. No wonder they don't have much film of him. Anyway, that's my little observation there. That in 10 cents will get you nothing. Okay, Thursday, the 15th, we have a new moon, Aquarius new moon, solar eclipse new moon. And as Leah, Leah Whitehouse, this is the February-March edition of the Mountain Astrologer. I did the numerology chart. Can you get a hold of this here? See the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then A is 1, B is 2, J is 1, S is 1. If you look at the sixes, FOX, Fox Network is the devil. X sign of the apocalypse, 666. Yeah, I just noticed that the other day. I made a note of that months and years ago, and then it slipped my mind. And besides, if you see this on YouTube, freeze it. And if you want to really get into numerology, the book that I believe is the best book on numerology ever out there, excuse me, was written in 1933 by a woman named Florence Campbell, like the soup. And the title, you can't forget, the title is called Your Days Are Numbered. And I believe it's, to me, the Bible of numerology. It's what I cut my teeth on, what I was taught by the best, and they recommended it. And I've seen a lot of other numerology books out there since then. This one gets reprinted. Its last incarnation, I believe, is School Bus Yellow. But the same knowledge is in there. They didn't mess with it. So, but as I said, if you want to know the vibrations of anything with a name, this is what you do. You just draw yourself a little chart and then do your name. Like my initials are F and M. 6 and 4 is 1. Nobody does it like me. See, your initials pack a punch. When you put your initials there, you're saying, okay, I'm original. You want originality, I'm unique. I got a talent that's very unique. Okay, that's enough of that. But hopefully you'll get into numerology. It's a wonderful guide. Okay, so Leah Whitehouse in this edition of the Mountain Astrologist says, an overview for February and March. She says, February begins amidst eclipse season line. The lunar eclipse just occurred on the last day of January. We had one on the beginning of January and one on the end. Those are two, a lunar and a solar eclipse. So this is another eclipse, a solar eclipse. But at least we're away from all that emotional stuff now. Everything's out of water for a little while. The sun goes back into Pisces, and then Venus will go back into Pisces. And we'll get emotions back in the middle of the end of the month there. So I talked about this on my last show about, so we won't repeat that, about shifting from darkness to light. On February 8th, Uranus leaves its 5-degree orb of its square to Pluto. See, that's key because everything we're experiencing now is part of the Uranus-Pluto square. That ended a few years ago, but it's still, happening. And it started in the 60s when Pluto and Uranus were in Virgo, preparing us for where we are now, which is paradigm changing. Each of us is in a learning soul, is a learning soul in a body. View everyone a growing soul. Yeah, this eclipse is to get us to bond and to have a connection with humanity and oneness. Some will continue to bond with moons. Yeah. View life from a higher perspective. Yeah, I've been taking the high road so long, I've got a nosebleed. No. Some people get nosebleeds from heights. No, I don't get nosebleeds. And by the way, if you get nosebleeds, it means joy is running out. Whenever you're bleeding, any kind of bleeding is joy. Joy running out. And ask yourself, joy, where are you going, honey? Find joy in the little things. Okay, let's get to... Okay, I want to take out of Louise Hay one disease a session every time I'm here. So I'm here twice a month. My next time I'll be here will be in a couple of weeks. I'm here the second and the fourth Thursday of every month. And this is my 9th year. Okay, so what we got, so I decided I want to, being the mystery school is already here, we just don't have a building, but I hope to soon. We do have Louise Hay, and I've been seeing a lot of, and a friend of mine too, who I don't think I'll be seeing much anymore, suffers from psoriasis and insomnia. And first of all, no matter what's wrong with you, if you're smoking cigarettes, it's a problem. Everything will get better if you just quit that addiction right there. I just had a friend, heavy smoker, die. She was a neighbor. We weren't really friends, we were friendly. But I can't be around people that smoke, and she always had this smoke around her, will rest her soul. As like psoriasis, I believe, is telling people, I don't want anybody touching me. Like if you get a sore lip, you're saying, don't come near me. I don't want anybody to ever kiss me again. Or, your body will speak to you. So, first of all, if you can't sleep, you might want to try at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, not drinking an almond latte with an extra shot of espresso. You think that's common sense and people would, figure that out. But a lot of times you have to really tell people. And just dawned on me the other day about, if you quit smoking, drinking caffeine before you go to sleep at night, you might sleep better. You might want to quit all fluids, like nothing after 6 p.m. or something, or at least caffeinated fuels. And psoriasis, let's go with psoriasis, because they've got these ads on TV now. I've already done a show on America and Iceland are the only two countries that permit, there's 3 letters that describe it. It's called, for profit, prescription drug for profit ads on public TV. So here we got LMNOP, psoriasis. I underlined it so I wouldn't have, these skin problems, but it says fear of being hurt, period. And like I said, it goes in what I said, it must be very painful. Thank God I don't suffer from it. But I see people with it, and I could just imagine it must be like shingles, really, really painful. Shingles is waiting for the other shoe to drop. Fear and nerves are the number one, and those are also very addictive emotions. Fear of being hurt, deadening the senses of the self. Tobacco does that. Liquor does that, where cannabis enhances your senses. I was walking home from Safeway the other day, and I was like, I'd say a good, not exaggerating, 30, 40 yards away from the corner, and I could smell the sage that grows on the side of the building, the Zen Center. And a lot of times, for good or for bad, I could smell tobacco from a mile away, practically. I'm not alone. I'm also not alone with Facebook. I've been Facebook free, and it takes 3 months to finally, I think it's still up there, but I haven't used it. As far as I closed the account. And Jim Carrey now, it's a bad thing. It's a bad, bad thing. And then we have that little Zuckerberg. Wow, what a little maniacal monster he is. He had his little face on TV the other day talking about how healthy Facebook is for you. Now, you can say a lot of things about Facebook, but it's increased loneliness. It's proven. It's been actually clinically proven by intense studies. It makes 14-year-old girls try to kill themselves. It totally warps the 6-year-old mind. And Zuckerberg's Facebook is spending lots of money getting into ways of getting 6-year-olds addicted. Thank God that what's left of integrity with the medical community, they're fighting them every inch of the way. And parents just anything to keep the kids shut up. They got this phone and the kids, oh my God, don't get me started. Because I don't have any kids. How many times have people snapped at me? Well, Frank, you don't have any kids. You don't know what, I knew if I don't even go there. I am alive to the joys of living. I deserve and accept the very best in life. I love and approve of myself. Now, if you have psoriasis, repeat that sentence 500 times. It'll disappear. Don't ask any questions, just do it. I am alive to the joys of living. I deserve and accept the very best in life, and I love and approve of myself. And I also thought, as I said, all these emotions, like most people think addictions are just substances. No, we can get addiction to emotions, like toxic emotions like fear. Addictions, running away from the self, fear, not knowing how to love the self. Like Bob Marley Can you be loved and be loved? I now discover how wonderful I am. I choose to love and enjoy myself. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, people are more lonely now. We're more connected. Well, I don't use Facebook. I don't have a cell phone. I never will. Oh, I'm off my gig about for a few shows I've done. I've been getting into quantum gravity, and then finally, I realized it's all just clever conversations. Now, here's Einstein's best friend. He's been dead for a while. He lived a nice long life into his 90s, just died in the 80s. Ernest J. Sternglass, before the Big Bang, the origins of the universe. I'm going to start complaining about Degrassi and all these people there, Tyson, and I'm going to start exploring this stuff myself. And I lighted through it, but it was just boring. And then we get to the last paragraph, and you could save yourself a lot of trouble by this few sentences. So every time you hear these scientists trying to, blow your mind with something that's ridiculous. He said, the last paragraph of this book, he says, the architect of this design and the energy required to bring this about remain a source of mystery, awe, and wonder beyond the ken of science. How do you like that, Degrassi, Tyson? You're making a lot of money pimping science there. Some moron, Tesla, spent a trillion, I don't know how much money on sending a car to Mars. He needs a slap in the face for that. And so does every newscaster who looked at that thing and marveled at the precision of. I was like, oh my God, I don't belong here. Oh, I do. But it's like, it's just no words to how ridiculous where a human being can be. Well, we're going to get on to it. I've got something here about. It's all about people wanting to be loved. It's simple. Like this guy says right here. Einstein asked whether God had any choice in designing the universe. Excuse me. Only a very small range of values. For the energy of the first quantum, the strength of its interaction is limited velocity and its initial angular momentum make it possible for conscious beings to evolve to the capacity to admire the simplicity and beauty of a design that gave birth to the cosmos as a spinning ring of light and allows it to exist forever. Whew. Well, see, if word got out, all these professors would, all these linear, before justice, I saw a congressman the other day step in front of the camera and scream about justice being blind. What a moron. Talk about throwbacks from the 14th century. Okay, 15th century, I made a note of this. Since the 16th century, okay, to that congressman who thinks the statue of Lady Justice is blind. Okay, since the 16th century, Lady Justice has been depicted wearing blindfolds. Represents impartiality. The ideal justice should not be applied without regard to wealth, power, and other status. And then he talks about Giuliani as something was commonly represented as blind to the Romans since about the 14th, 15th century. So this congressman is a throwback from the 1400s, because that was the last time that people saw justice as the goddess justice as, or the deity justice as being blind. And then it also said, I thought was kind of amusing, being a gay man and in my approaching 70 very quickly, and I feel like I'm 30 until like 8 at night, but that's another story. The Greeks have a deity of justice, and it's called Dike, D-I-K-E. So I thought, well, that's a bit of trivia. You might be on Jeopardy someday and ask, and I doubt that'll be a question on Jeopardy. Okay, so. We got, it's like beyond Falcon Crest. It's like a really, it's what we need. The facade has come crumbling down, and now we understand. Everybody understands now that justice is. I mean, not justice. That racism is. Very much alive in America. Well, it's no newsflash, no crap Sherlock, you know. Okay, so let's get right to not being loved. See, because that thing going into space reminded me, so I found this book years ago, it's 2003, Jacob's Hip. Yeah, Jacob fought with the angel, and the angel left him with a limp. And it says, the high road, one way to begin the new opportunity offered by 9/11. See, he says 9/11 just reminded us that we're vulnerable. Stubborn refusal to take advantage of opportunities for self-examination and growth provided by 9/11 limit situation. Yeah, so nobody's even analyzed anything. We never changed. Why does everybody hate us? You know, so what he says here is, as a mantra has seized our imagination since 9/11 terrorist attacks, things will never be the same again. We hear it chanted everywhere. And this was written in 2003, before Trump, at the family get-togethers. In the most obvious sense, what we mean to what we lament are things are forever changed, and that is our long-standing confidence in our own untouchability has been badly damaged. We found out now we're vulnerable. We are totally vulnerable. And instead of making a world where we're not hated as much, we're doing what he says the trap is. The stubborn refusal to take advantage of all these opportunities for self-examination. The only way to achieve safety is through force of arms. If anything, in fact, they have become even more canalized, yeah. Then it says, the United States will remember those who refuse to take part, suggesting that neutrality in the face of global threat, yeah. Okay, then he says something, we'll get through this, I'm not going to read you the whole thing for it. He talks here about, yet there were some in this country, mainly intellectuals, whose postmodern morphia prevents them from seeing the total clarity offered by the events of 9/11. Yeah. And then he says here about taking the high road, how we're all, one way to begin to understand the new opportunity over is there's this guy named Nouwen. Ewan believes in a culture whose chief standard of success is upward mobility. Upward mobility. The frenetic and utterly self-absorbed scramble to snatch and claw one's way to the top of the food chain. The supreme values of an ethos of upward mobility are strength, efficiency, and success. Excellence is one of its favorite buzzwords, an emphasis on that basically signifies coming out on top at any price. Roy Cohen. People are too young. I lived through the Roy Cohen. I know about Roy Cohen. He's a monster. He died in the 80s of AIDS. He created Donald Trump. Donald Trump is often lamenting, where's my Roy Cohen? Yeah, he's in hell. He's in hell. He's still, he's well and alive in you. A person or nation striving for excellence is properly contemptuous of weakness. Yeah, a person or nation thriving for excellence is properly contemptuous of weakness, indifference to the needs of others, and suspicious of friendly overtures from strangers. People are viewed as leeches, competitors or aggressors, or at least temporary allies to be discarded as soon as their usefulness is exhausted. Use them and abuse them, you know. The only thing that really matters to the upward mobile climber is power. Semicolon, power to dominate others, to be feared by others, to be untouchable by the assault of others. The portrait of upward mobility painted by Newton, Nouwen, is painfully familiar. Upwardness permeates our way of living, our value system, and the standards by which we gauge success and failure. Sometimes it expresses itself in crass terms of vaunting ambition, but just as frequently it makes itself in the high tones of duty. And then, quote unquote, my whole life has been surrounded by well-meaning encouragement to go higher up. What was it? Orrin Hack the other day said, screamed about that tax Christmas present, stealing from the poor to give to the rich, and he was indignant. He said, "I've dedicated my whole life to raping the poor." He didn't say that, but that's what I heard. He said the first part, "I dedicated my whole life to service." Oh, get off the cross. We need the wood, huh? "My whole life has been surrounded by well-meaning encouragement to go higher up. And the most used argument was, you can do so much good there for so many people." Oh, give me a break. Why do so many of us give and receive encouragement to go higher up, to account for upward mobility, merely by invoking social conditioning is too simplistic, because such a solution begs the question of its origin. So we must probe more deeply. What is there about a human condition that seeds the lust for power, character of upward mobility? Question mark. And then Nguyen approaches the question by appealing to the story of Jesus' 3 wilderness temptations. See, we're going right into Jesus here. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. Mary, don't you moan. Mary, don't you read. Martha, don't you moan. The tempter came to him, tempter in quotations there. The tempter came to him asking him to prove that he was worth being loved. The tempter said to him, "Do something useful, like turning stones to bread. Do something sensational, like throwing yourself down from a high tower. Do something that brings you power, like paying me homage." These 3 temptations were 3 ways to seduce Jesus into becoming a competitor for love. The world of the tempter, T-E-M-P-T-E-R, is precisely that world in which people compete for love, so doing useful, sensational, and powerful things, and so winning medals that gain them affection and admiration. They just want to be loved. And that's why I said, Bob Marley, can you be loved and be loved? This is remarkable insight into the deep psychology of upward mobility. His point is that the lust for power comes not from hubris or arrogant ambition. These are symptoms, not causes, but instead from the heart-sickening fear of not being loved. And you are loved. I had to die. And I went. Most people watch this show every couple of months. I repeat about in 82. I left my body. And then they told me to come back. Wasn't my time. And then they never let you back without giving you some kind of a gift, So I know what I'm talking about. That's why on my shows since November, I've been telling people not to, watch my other shows. I don't want to repeat that. And thank you for watching my November show. All you November people watch me on YouTube. There were like 250 of you. Thank you. In fighting their way to the top, upwardly mobile climbers hope to do something useful, to do something so powerful, so sensational that people will be bound to notice and admire them. Love is what they want, but they are so forlorn and lonely that they will settle for mere attention. Sound like Donald Trump? Pathetically, they may even confuse the two. Love and attention, you see. Well, that's like I say, he's a man-child, and not the nicest way. I have a buddy in his 80s who calls himself a man-child, but he's a man-child in the nicest way. No, this is a schoolboy, schoolyard bully, the classroom cheat, the Tommy, the rock opera. Well, we got Donnie, the rock opera, that, he picking on deaf, dumb, and blind kids. You should do a new update the Who rock opera Tommy, call it Donnie, and the deaf Donnie, because I went to school on Long Island with these brats. They paid poor kids to write poor girls to write their papers for college, and they get through college with all these high marks, but they're just as stupid as when they entered, because they pay to have people write their, and then 5 draft detachments, Donnie, he's not my president. He's not the legitimate president, so I won't call him President Trump. Before we'll finish this, and then I want to talk about karma there. We now see that our deeply rooted fear and insecurity is actually the consequence of an even deeper need to be loved. If we feel unloved, we quake with the dreadful sense of insecurity that afflicts and orphans an abused child in search for ways to make ourselves less vulnerable. The tragedy, as we have seen, is that the upwardly mobile way of pursuing safety only aggravates our anxiety. Security barriers, money, social prestige, political clout just give us something else to worry about. Will they ever endure? I've always said, lay low. You can't fall off the floor, you know? Frantic struggles to freeze time only accentuate the speed with which it slips through our fingers. Consolidating personal power by transforming everyone else into strangers exiles us from genuine community and ratchets up our terrible loneliness. Our celebrities can be all painfully testify to that. Upwardly mobile, the upward path then won't give us what we want, and more important, what we need: love. It's well, they say you can't live on love. Well, I do. This leaves us with the lower path, the one that leads away from success to notoriety and power. This guy tells us that the second route, the one of downward mobility, is the descending way of Jesus, inner space. We're as far out of space as we're ever going to get. We're so far away from where the action is, where it's really like so intense love and brilliance and beauty. We were in nerd school. We were away at camp, you know, learn something, like learn a trade. He says, the descending way of Jesus is the way toward the poor, the suffering, the marginal, the prisoners, the refugees, the lonely, the hungry, the dying, the tortured, the homeless. The downward path which commands us to leave our egos and our carefully contrived defense strategies by the roadside take us straight to the place where most resist going, the margins. It's where you go to the edge. That's where you see the best views. The outback, the open spaces, the patches and provisionally, the precarity. It is God's invitation to join us in the loving, sacrificial way of the cross. As we saw in chapter 1 of this amazing book, it's really worth seeing. Go out of your way to find it. Kerry Walters is a professor of religious philosophy at Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania. He's a brilliant man. There's not enough of his stuff out there, but he teaches to this day, and he gets most of this stuff from his students. Just as open. Then he says here, he goes on, but first, the greatest insight of all, we are already loved. Jesus was able to resist the tempter because he didn't need to prove to himself that he was worthy of love. He knew he was already loved by the gods. You know, a friend of mine just got a part and they're making a movie. Paramount's making a movie, or one of those companies, and he's going down to L.A. He's an American Indian. And they're making a movie of when the American Indians reclaimed Alcatraz. And I was around then. And I remember PBS did a special on the man that, I forget his name, was Turned Up or something like that. And he had just passed away, and they were doing a thing of his life. And they had him like actually talking to the camera like I'm talking to you. And he said when he was brought up in a foster home, or, you know, it was rough American Indian life on the reservation, you know, a lot of alcoholism, abuse. Anyway, he was 16, 17, and they sent him to school. Like, he had to go. The white man said, "You've got to go to our school." So he went into the school with around 8 or 9 of his buddies, and they were all the same age, standing in front of this white guy. This old fart looks at him and says, looked them all up and down and says, "I'm going to make you kid. I'm going to make you somebody." And the American Indian who was inspired, was all part of that. It started that whole Alcatraz occupation thing. He said, "Well, I just walked out of there after he was finished talking, crossed the street, went up the street, and went into the recruiting office and enlisted in the Navy for a couple of years, lied about my age." He said, because I knew I was somebody. He knew they would break his spirit. I was lucky. My spirit had been broken, and then when I left my body and while I was up on the other side, they got my spirit back together. So in '82, I came back like a new kid, you know, because I didn't know who I was. And then I figured, well, okay, I had this whole life be an astrologer. At the time, I was really into Interview magazine, and I used to read the astrology in Interview magazine, and they did this thing about the guy who contributed that article, and he lived on a yacht in Crete. And I thought, that's the life for me. Now that I'm sober and everything, was I in for a big surprise? You know, I love my path now, but at first I wasn't thrilled with the idea that I had to work with the sick and all this. Just as upwardly mobile is the way of the world, so downwardly mobile goes against the world grain. Downwardly mobile with Jesus, cautions Newman, goes radically against my inclinations and against the advice of the world surrounding me and against the culture which I am part. That's why we have already noted the divine grace is necessary. Yeah, so we're all loved. And then the last little sentence here is he said, knowing that we are loved then necessarily leads to risking love ourselves. This means loving our vulnerability, living our vulnerability in an honest and straightforward manner. We will still be anxious about our radical exposure and occasionally, particularly in times of crisis, find ourselves longing for safety zones and security barriers. How could we not? Question mark. But we can live with the anxiety because we are loved. Mother Teresa said that years ago. Get up 4 in the morning. She was in Phoenix, the homeless, bringing attention to the plight of the homeless. And she was on this local TV show, and at the end, she didn't say anything. At the end of the show, the guy begged her to open her mouth. He said, I got a living legend on my show, and you won't say peep. And then after they got back from a commercial, she looked at the camera and said, I want everybody to get up tomorrow morning at 4 a.m., roam the streets of Phoenix, and find a homeless person who thinks they're unloved and convince them they're loved. Convince them they're not alone. And here we are now. And I'm telling you, we will be anxious about our radical, but we can live with the anxiety because we are loved. And since God's judgment is trustworthy, we can know, as Jesus knew, that we are worthy of love. Being loved by God is the only assurance we need that we are indeed lovable. And then I overlooked the part where he says, God's invitation for us to join the loving sacrifice. That's how God experiences love, is through us. So every time we throw compassion, we understand that the cannabis issue is civil rights. Oh, before I forget, Denise Dory shows on the 1st and the 3rd Thursday at 6 right here. Yeah, I've gotten away from the cannabis activism. And because as a matter of fact, I find every Wednesday in front of the public library, they have like a slew of books on these tables. Everything's $1. I found Sri Aurobindo, 67, wonderful book, $1. Couldn't believe it. And there's a few sentences in here. I hope I have time to read it. If not, I'll bring it back next time I'm here. And also Lama Suro Das, $1. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. But I thought this is an interesting one. It's called, I don't even know how to say that word. Anonymous. It's the forgotten people behind everyday words. And this reminded me of the worst punishment for Trump. It's all about Vulcan, V-I-C-K-U-N, Vulcan Quisling. Quisling, it's a little Nazi guy. Quisling, a noun, the native puppet of an occupying power. Quisling was the son of a pastor of a fascist, and he formed some kind of a party in 1933 with the aim of becoming Norway's first Fuhrer. And he was selling, however, Norwegians weren't buying. Few joined his lonely party, and a measly 2% were his best showing at the polls. Frustrated by his countrymen, Quisling met Hitler and asked him if he would please invade his homeland. He requested his hero promptly granted. a request his hero promptly granted. When fascist troops arrived on Norwegian soil in April 1940, Vidkun seized the day and announced a coup over the radio. Hitler didn't return his devotees' odd love, and considering Quisling a loser, and removed him from power at once. However, Rockefeller proved little more popular than Quisling, his replacement, and Vidkun was named premier of the puppet government in 1942. A post he lasted until his arrest in 1945, was the same year executed. He was a feat not necessarily accomplished by any Scandinavian countryman, particularly one lacking the death penalty. So he went somewhere. They knocked him off. An adoption of the word Quisling, no capital Q, spread fast into languages across the country and beyond, putting Vidkun in the rarefied company of Judas Iscariot and Benedict Arnold as men who verified that their very name means traitor. Vidkun, however, was the only one obscure enough to have his name decapitalized. I'm all for decapitalizing Trump now. It's all right if you have to use the T, Trump. At least that would really get him. Someone with an ego bigger than all outdoors. So please take anything away from this show. You are loved. And look in the mirror and tell yourself, I love you. I'm your best friend. Never mind gonna be. I am your best friend through eternity. So anyway, I'm standing there going through the racks of books, rifling through them, not making a mess. Actually, I clean up a lot of mess. I always line up the books. I have Saturn and Virgo. I'm neat. I'm clean. And all of a sudden, I look up, and this woman in a wheelchair, I hear my name, Psychic Frank. And she goes, Psychic Frank. And I look up, and it's a woman I haven't seen for at least 10 years. Mira, she's Mira, if you're watching, I love you. And I hadn't seen her in like 10 years, and we talked about Dennis Peron passing on, and we weren't close. He never wanted me to touch him. I wonder why. I think if you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing and you don't want a psychic, I never took it personally. I respect, if people want to smoke, I'm not the tobacco police. I don't want to go around, people hide their cigarettes, here comes Frank. If you want to commit suicide, go ahead. I'll hope you die. I'll make sure you die right. And next time you come around, you'll have a bigger addiction. It never goes away. So anyway, this Mira looks up at me and she goes, Psychic Frank. And we had this, and I said, well, I'm going through some big changes. It's my 9th year, and I'm detangling from a lot of things, and I'm no longer into cannabis activism. I'll do what I can from my little podium here and wear a sign, whatever I can, but I said, Axis of Love is full of wonderful people. I really love them, but there's just one guy there who's so evil, and for the last 10 years, I can't do any healing with him around because he just, I don't know, he's just evil. And then we looked at each other, and just as she said his name. So this guy's word is out. And actually, thank you. I'm not going to mention his name, but thank you for that. I wish I had just taken the high road and just walked out, but I was so. See, when I drop my grounding cord and I'm getting ready to do healings, and I ask someone to please lower the radio or cut out, the last thing I expect if I'm invited someplace to do healings is to be told, chastised, and reminded I'm not a boss and I'm nothing. That's what he said to me, Oh, I had to leave. How could I stay? How could I stay in that space? So So I resigned from Axis of Love. It's official now. I have already emailed my resignation in. I'm still supporting their efforts. Just one rotten apple does spoil a whole barrel, though. So anyway, I even though it was really made me sick. It totally made me sick. But I temporarily, sick meaning nauseous. It was. As I said, when I least expected. No one likes to be sucker punched, and especially if you want to feel safe to do what you do, open up psychically. I like what he says about hugging. I love Lama Soro Das. Make me one with everything. What did the Dalai Lama say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. Well, the Dalai Lama wouldn't eat hot dogs. I assure you that. Although someone told me his doctors convinced him he's have to eat chicken now. Anyway, hugging is a nowness meditation. Sometimes we have genuine conscious intent, but not a lot of time. Our lives are a hustle and bustle. Take mornings, for example. Parents prepare breakfast, find homework, and shin guards, make sure the dog has a walk, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to find that space on hugging. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Yeah, it's so important, and now I can't find it, about how just 30 seconds, here it is. According to an article in Science magazine, a hug usually lasts 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. The same average amount of time as a baby's babble or a wave goodbye. Wave bye-bye. Ever wonder how long a hug lasts? The quick answer is about 3 seconds. This is from the magazine, Science magazine. According to a new study of the post-competition embraces of Olympic athletes, but not the long answer is more profound. A hug lasts about as much time as many other human actions and neurological processes, which support the hypothesis that we go through life perceiving the present in a series of 3-second windows. And that's a fact. That's the truth, Ruth. The article, Trump wants to do a parade like they do in banana republics. And I was watching TV the other day, and they were talking about he actually wants a parade. He wants an ice cream cone, a new ring, a new sparkly ring, and a parade. And the guy looked in the camera and he said, "No thanks." Get it? No thanks. God, Trump is such a moron. But anyway, and it's really treasonous what's going on. It's sad, but it's what we need. We're going to get through this, and we're going to be like never before. We're going to be what America was meant to be. We are. It's just we had to have the facade drop. So he goes on to say, the article goes on to explain, the results reinforce the idea current among the psychologists that intervals of about 3 seconds are basic temporal units of life that define our perceptions of the present moment. Put another way, that one psychologist calls the feeling of nowness tends to last 3 seconds. Yes, they said nowness, exclamation point. In parentheses, he said, and you thought I was making this word up. That's what it gets me. Although I think time is less relevant than quantity of presence, as the Dogen masters say, the moment of total awareness is one moment of freedom and enlightenment. Whether or not it takes exactly 3 seconds may be immaterial, but so many opportunities for greater consciousness and connection certainly abound when you break them down to 3-second increments. There's a whole area of research devoted to hugging. Other scientists suggest that a hug should last 20 seconds. According to Stan Tarkin of UCLA, 20-second hugs release oxytocin, the love hormone that bounds mothers and babies, lovers, friends, and maybe even people and their pets, and also lowers blood pressure, relieves stress for both the hugger and the hugged. Count me in. But again, it comes back to intent. As reported by the Daily Mail, physiologists or whatever, I'm not one of them. Some Jorgens, he's a Norway guy there, I guess, said the positive effects only occur, however, if the people trust each other, if the associated feelings are present mutually, if the corresponding signals are sent out, if people do not know each other, or if the hug is not desired by both parties, its effects are lost. Start with trees. I hug buildings. I said this on my last show, and I was telling Mira the other day about I picked up the Soro Das no, Sri Aurobindo book, and I mentioned the Zen Center years ago, like 30 something years ago, is when I took all those Buddhist initiations. And every time I take the route from Safeway to Hayes Valley, I pass Laguna and Page, where the Zen Center is. I don't go in there. I haven't been in there in like 20 something years, maybe 30 years. But because I got so much knowledge there from these ancient, these guys were over 100, and they didn't even speak English. They were there. They were in Tibet when Tibet was slaughtered, and I got many hands-on initiations with these brilliant men. They had little monks that translated for them. So I was It was very cold. It was a cold afternoon, and I was walking home from Safeway, and there's the Cornerstone, and as usual, I hugged the building for a few seconds. I usually, there's no traffic. I'll just rest on the building, and then all of a sudden, I was sitting for like 3 minutes, and all of a sudden, this warm breeze there that braced the back of my neck, and I said, "Woo!" The building hugged me back. So everything has a consciousness, Yeah, see, there's no place in San Francisco. I don't think any place, many places where, and now that Say Ching-Ling is gone, there was a Tibetan place, a mansion that was open to, I went to many lectures there on astrology and stuff, or alternative healings. Tibetan Buddhists are now moved out of that neighborhood. So, we'll talk more about hugging. I just want to read one sentence of this because we only got 2 minutes left, and I don't think we're going to be able to get to it. Okay, well, we'll do Sri Aurobindo next time. He says, the present evolutionary crisis, but reason cannot arrive at any final truth because it can neither be the root of the things nor the embrace their totality. It deals with the finite. The separate has no measure for all it's the infinite, so you're an infinite being, you're a marvel. I love you. You are marvelous. You're a miracle, no matter what shape you're in and what your challenges are. If you think you have a problem with alcohol or tobacco, you probably do. If you're hugging the toilet, throwing up, and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if I should stop drinking. Yeah, you should. And don't do it alone. Get into a rehab place. Yeah, don't try to detox alone. You could kill yourself. I love you, and I'll be here in 2 weeks. I don't even have a calendar in front of me. Okay, thank you for your time. I hope you got something out of this. Just remember, you are so loved. You are so loved. Big hugs. Oh, I love you. Okay, take care. Be kind. Be kind to each other, especially to yourself.